In the summer of 2024, millions across Britain celebrated what they believed was a turning point in the nation's history. After 14 long years of Conservative rule, the Labour Party, led by Keir Starmer, swept into power with promises of stability, integrity, and change. The pledges were bold: a fairer economy, a stronger NHS, balanced taxation, and a tighter grip on immigration. "We are not Tony Blair. And we are definitely not Jeremy Corbyn," Starmer insisted. People believed him. But now, 1 year later, the honeymoon is over, and Britain is facing hard questions. Has Labour delivered on its promises? Or are we simply witnessing a new chapter in the same old story of political disappointment? In this special report, we break down Labour's first year in government, by the numbers, through the policies, and with the voices of real people. Every success. Every failure. 1 year of Labour rule. Has Britain changed for the better, or have we just traded chaos for compromise? Did you know that over 95% of our viewers aren't subscribed to the channel? We totally get it. Life gets busy and sometimes it's easy to forget. But here's the thing: subscribing is completely free, and it really helps us keep creating the content you enjoy. So why not hit that subscribe button and join our community? It only takes a second, but it makes a world of difference to us. Thank you for your support. Now, let's dive in. When Labour came to power in July 2024, the message was clear: rebuild trust, rescue the economy, and restore fairness. After years of instability, scandals, and economic mismanagement under the Conservatives, Keir Starmer and Chancellor Rachel Reeves promised a new era of fiscal responsibility with social conscience. But 1 year later, the British economy sits in a fragile equilibrium, not collapsing, not recovering fast enough, and the public is feeling the pressure more than ever. In her first speech as Chancellor, Rachel Reeves declared, "Economic stability is the foundation of national renewal. We will never play fast and loose with the public finances." Labour pledged not to raise income tax, VAT, or national insurance, but they left plenty of room for manoeuvre elsewhere. Their plan hinged on two things: restoring business confidence, increasing public investment without triggering inflation. By mid-2025, the UK economy showed signs of shallow growth. GDP increased by just 0.5%, one of the weakest among G7 nations. Inflation dropped to around 3.1%, down from over 5% the year before, but mainly due to external factors like energy price stabilization, not internal reforms. Unemployment remained relatively stable at 4.2%, but wage growth stagnated, especially in the public sector, where morale continues to fall. Business confidence improved slightly in sectors like green energy and tech, thanks to targeted investment incentives. But broader sectors like retail, hospitality, and construction complained about over-regulation and slow decision-making from Whitehall. While Labour technically didn't raise the headline tax rates, they introduced stealth tax policies that had real effects on households. Freezing income tax thresholds, this means more people are pulled into higher tax brackets due to inflation. It's a move economists call fiscal drag. Capital gains tax reforms, while not extreme, changes to allowances affected landlords and small investors. Council tax hikes, local authorities were granted more flexibility, leading to spikes across England and Wales. Inheritance tax rumblings, discussions about reforming or removing exemptions spooked older middle-class voters, though no law has passed yet. Despite lower inflation, prices remain significantly higher than pre-2022 levels. Housing costs, especially rent, are at record highs. Food prices have stabilized but remain a burden for lower-income families. Energy bills dropped in early 2025 but are expected to rise again in winter, especially after the government announced a phased rollback of subsidies in the name of budgetary discipline. Labour's economic message is clear: we stopped the bleeding. But many voters reply, you didn't stop the pain. A recent YouGov poll, June 2025, found 41% say the economy is at about the same as under the Conservatives. 28% say it's worse. Only 23% feel it has improved. The biggest concern? Tax burden. The UK is now experiencing its highest tax level as a share of GDP since World War II, and many blame Labour for not reversing the Tory trajectory. The Institute for Fiscal Studies, IFS, notes that Labour is walking a tightrope, trying to balance credibility with rising social demands. The Financial Times praised Reeve's discipline but warned that her room to manoeuvre is vanishingly small. The Resolution Foundation found that the poorest 20% of families are still worse off in real terms than a year ago, despite wage support schemes. Labour didn't crash the economy, but they haven't revived it either. Their cautious approach kept the markets calm, but not the people. They avoided the big risks, and also the bold moves. The question now is, in trying not to scare anyone, have they failed to inspire anyone? Few institutions carry as much emotional weight in British life as the NHS. It's not just a healthcare system, it's a symbol of fairness, solidarity, and national pride. And in 2024, it was on life support. Waiting lists had soared past 7.6 million people, junior doctors and nurses were striking, and patients were dying in corridors. Keir Starmer and Labour made fixing the NHS a central pillar of their campaign. "We will build an NHS fit for the future," they said. But a year into power, that promise is looking increasingly fragile. Labour pledged to cut waiting times with 40,000 more weekly appointments, boost staffing through a long-term workforce plan, tackle the crisis in mental health by creating walk-in hubs, modernise the system with digital upgrades and community care expansion. Starmer framed it not as a spending issue, but a management one. Efficiency, not just money. As of July 2025, the NHS is still under immense pressure. Waiting lists have dropped slightly, to 7.2 million, but still near record highs. A&E departments are still missing the 4-hour target, with some trusts seeing only 60% of patients within that time. Cancer treatment targets remain unmet. In some regions, over 35% of urgent referrals wait more than 2 weeks. Junior doctors staged 2 more strikes in early 2025 over pay and conditions. Nursing vacancies remain at crisis levels, with more staff leaving than joining in some regions. Despite efforts to calm disputes, morale across the NHS remains low. Many frontline workers say they feel betrayed by Labour's failure to negotiate meaningfully. The 5% pay uplift in early 2025 was seen as too little, too late by most unions. Mental health hubs in schools and communities have opened in pilot regions, but staffing is inconsistent. Labour did not commit to significantly increasing NHS funding beyond inflation. The 2025 budget allocated a £3.5 billion increase, but analysts at the King's Fund called it below the minimum needed just to stand still. Capital investment in new buildings and tech has been delayed due to spending controls. Digital transformation projects have stalled in over 30% of NHS trusts due to funding uncertainty. A GP in Birmingham told The Guardian, "We're still drowning." The promises made in 2024 now feel like PR lines. A patient in Manchester waited 16 months for a knee replacement. "I thought Labour would fix this." "It hasn't changed at all," she told Sky News. Mental health workers say Labour has talked a good game but failed to address staffing gaps in real terms. In a recent Ipsos poll, June 2025, only 19% of respondents said they believe the NHS has improved since Labour took office. 46% said it had stayed the same. 31% believe it's actually gotten worse. Public faith in Labour's ability to fix the NHS has dropped by 11 points since August 2024, according to YouGov. Labour underestimated the depth of the crisis they inherited. They promised fast improvements, but system reform takes time. Budget restrictions meant tough trade-offs between staff pay, infrastructure, and tech. Internal divisions within Labour between spend more voices and stay responsible voices paralysed bold action. The Nuffield Trust, Labour's ambition is clear, but without substantial capital and workforce investment, the NHS will continue to fall short. Health Foundation, efficiency matters, but you can't squeeze blood from a stone. The Times health editor wrote, "1 year in, Labour hasn't broken the NHS. But they haven't saved it either. Labour promised a stronger, faster NHS. What they've delivered so far is a slightly more stable, but still overwhelmed, healthcare system. The danger? Public patience is running out faster than waiting times are coming down. The question now is, can the NHS survive 3 more years of slow recovery before another government swings the axe?" While the economy and NHS dominated the headlines, the true weight of daily life in Britain is felt in classrooms, kitchens, and on payslips. Labour entered office in 2024 promising a emission government, one that would tackle the cost of living crisis not just through taxes and benefits, but by addressing the deeper issues: education inequality, the housing crunch, and stagnant wages. A year in, these promises are being tested, and for many, they're failing to meet the moment. Labour's education pledges in 2024 included recruiting 6,500 new teachers, expanding access to mental health support in schools, ending tax breaks for private schools to invest more in state education, reforming Ofsted and reducing unnecessary inspections. What's happened so far? Only around 2,900 new teachers have been added, far below the target, many citing pay, workload, and burnout as barriers. A teacher in Sheffield told BBC News, "We're losing experienced staff faster than we're training new ones." Mental health support hubs have begun rolling out in priority areas, but many schools report long wait times or lack of professionals. The removal of VAT exemptions on private schools is still in consultation, not yet implemented, with fierce opposition from private school lobbyists and middle-class parents. Ofsted reform has been quietly delayed. Impact: state schools still face record class sizes and a shortage of specialists, especially in maths, physics, and IT. Exam performance in 2025 shows slight improvement in literacy, but a decline in STEM results in lower-income regions. The levelling up mission remains more of a slogan than a measurable outcome so far. Labour's housing promises were ambitious. Build 1.5 million homes over 5 years. Prioritise affordable housing. Reform the planning system. Tackle homelessness. 1 year in. Around 140,000 homes have been built since July 2024, putting Labour behind pace. Planning reform is stuck in parliamentary committees, with resistance from both local councils and rural MPs. Affordable housing targets have been missed in most major cities, particularly London, Manchester, and Bristol. Rent prices continue to rise, up 6.2% on average over the past year, according to the ONS. Homelessness rose by 8% nationwide, with shelters reporting record demand. The Guardian reported in June 2025. Labour's housing strategy risks becoming another lost decade unless bold legislative change is pushed through soon. What Labour promised: raise the minimum wage to reflect the cost of living, strengthen workers' rights and end exploitative contracts, support green job creation and skills training. 1 year later, minimum wage increased to £11.75 per hour, but inflation-adjusted wages remain stagnant for many. Real earnings for public sector workers are still below 2010 levels, especially for teachers, social workers, and care staff. The controversial zero-hour contract ban was watered down after lobbying, now limited to new contracts only. Job creation in green sectors is progressing, with over 30,000 new roles announced, but few are outside of London and the South East. Youth unemployment remains stubborn at 12.8%, with underinvestment in vocational training. According to a Sky data poll, July 2025, 52% of renters believe Labour has done nothing meaningful to help them. 47% of parents say schools are just as stretched as under the Tories. Only 21% of workers feel Labour has improved pay and job stability. One social worker in Leeds told ITV, "I voted for Labour because I wanted security. But I'm working 50 hours a week and I still can't afford childcare or a mortgage." What changed? Labour aimed to ease the cost of living through structural reforms. But a year later, the cracks remain. Education reforms delayed. Housing targets missed. Wages barely keeping up with reality. For many Brits, the change in government has yet to translate into a change in life. In 2024, the Labour Party faced one of the most delicate and politically charged challenges in British politics: immigration. After years of chaotic Tory policies, controversial Rwanda plans, and an overwhelmed asylum system, Labour promised a new, sensible approach. Keir Starmer pledged to be tough on illegal migration, while creating a fairer and more efficient system. 1 year on, has Labour brought order to the borders, or simply replaced slogans with silence? Labour's 2024 immigration promises included scrapping the Rwanda deportation plan, creating a new border security command with powers to tackle smuggling gangs, speeding up the asylum processing system, introducing work visa reforms to address labour shortages without opening the floodgates, balancing compassion with control, no more unworkable gimmicks, as Starmer described Tory policy. Illegal immigration and small boats. Rwanda flights were officially cancelled in September 2024, within Labour's first 100 days. The number of small boat crossings in the Channel dropped only marginally, from 45,755 in 2023 to 41,200 in 2024, with 2025 on pace for a similar figure. The new Border Security Command was launched in January 2025, combining MI5, the National Crime Agency, and immigration officers, but operational impact remains limited. Over 27,000 asylum claims remain unresolved, with processing delays still exceeding 12 months on average. A report by the Home Affairs Select Committee in June 2025 concluded the backlog remains unacceptably high, and many of the structural issues that plagued the system under the Conservatives persist today. Legal migration and work visas. Labour reduced visa quotas for care workers and farm labourers, sparking labour shortages in agriculture and social care. Skilled worker visas were tightened in early 2025, especially for non-English-speaking applicants. Businesses in hospitality and logistics sectors voiced strong opposition, warning of long-term productivity risks. Net migration remains high, around 550,000 in 2024, compared to 606,000 the year before, a drop, but far from the control the narrative. The Financial Times described Labour's visa reforms as an attempt to please everyone, and ending up pleasing no one. Labour ended the use of barges and hotels for asylum seekers, but failed to provide adequate alternatives. Several councils refused to take new arrivals, citing lack of resources. Protests erupted in Kent, Yorkshire, and East London over sudden placements and local pressure. Far-right groups capitalised on the uncertainty, pushing anti-migrant narratives online and on the streets. Labour is now under fire from both sides. The Conservatives accused them of weakening the borders. The Reform UK party, led by Nigel Farage, gained significant traction, especially in coastal and rural areas most affected by immigration pressures. Meanwhile, left-wing MPs and activists are angry at what they call inhumane continuity with Tory policy. In Parliament, Suella Braverman accused Starmer of opening the gates to chaos, while Diane Abbott said Labour had lost its soul on immigration. A YouGov poll, July 2025, showed 38% believe immigration has increased under Labour. Only 16% feel Labour is handling it better than the Conservatives. 29% support stricter rules, even if it hurts the economy. Meanwhile, among first-time Labour voters in 2024, immigration is now the second most cited reason for political dissatisfaction, after taxes. Migration Watch UK, Labour has failed to reduce illegal immigration in any meaningful way. IPPR think tank, Reeves and Starmer are trapped between economic necessity and political messaging. The Guardian editorial, Britain needs honest immigration debate. Labour's caution only fuels confusion. Labour promised a smart, effective immigration policy. But 1 year in, the system remains overwhelmed, public trust is eroding, and political pressure is building. Is this a government carefully recalibrating, or one paralysed by fear of making a bold choice? 1 year into Labour's rule, something is shifting, not just in Westminster, but in living rooms, newspapers, and pub conversations across Britain. The optimism of July 2024 has given way to cautious scepticism, and in some quarters, outright disillusionment. The question now is no longer, will Labour fix things? But are they really any different? In Labour's first months, media tone was broadly positive. The BBC spoke of a return to competence. The Times praised Starmer's measured leadership. The Financial Times welcomed Rachel Reeves as the most fiscally responsible Chancellor in a generation. But by early 2025, the tone changed. The Telegraph, Labour has mastered spin, not substance. The Guardian, where is the bold vision voters were promised? The Daily Mail, Britain's silent crisis continues under Labour. Coverage of NHS waiting times, housing failures, internal Labour disputes, immigration paralysis. All intensified, often leading nightly news segments. Labour's communications team now faces growing difficulty controlling the message. Starmer's press conferences are increasingly defensive, and ministers are facing tougher interviews. According to the latest YouGov tracking, July 2025. Labour's national polling average has dropped from 42% to 34%. The Conservatives recovered slightly to 27%. Reform UK surged to 20%, a historic high for a third party. Keir Starmer's personal approval. +8 in July 2024. Now -11, with growing criticism from within his own base. Biggest public concerns? NHS. Taxes. Immigration. Cost of living. In all four areas, Labour's approval has declined since taking office. Across the country, frustration is growing. In Liverpool, a woman told Sky News, "We gave them a chance. But bills are still going up, and my GP's still full." What's changed? In Cornwall, a fisherman told The Times, "They're London people with London problems. They don't see us." In Leicester, a factory worker said, "I voted Labour to fix housing. But rents are worse than ever. No one's building." The pattern is clear. Labour's message of competence and reform is failing to land where it matters most, with ordinary people. Behind closed doors, Labour is not as unified as it seems. Several backbenchers are pushing for more radical economic moves. The left-wing bloc, including Momentum members, accuse Starmer of abandoning core Labour values. Trade unions, especially the BMA and RMT, are growing restless after a year of negotiation with no transformation. Leaked WhatsApp messages and off-the-record briefings suggest growing tension between Number 10 and the Treasury. A rift between Starmer loyalists and soft left MPs who fear a voter exodus. Professor John Curtice, Labour isn't in crisis yet, but it is losing control of the political conversation. Sonia Soda, observer, Labour tried to be everything to everyone. That's now becoming its biggest weakness. Dan Hodges, Mail on Sunday, Starmer may be competent, but he's not connecting. The biggest political story isn't Labour's missteps, it's who's capitalising on them. Reform UK, under Nigel Farage's return to frontline politics, is seeing record support, particularly in working-class, ex-Labour areas. The Conservatives, though battered, are regrouping under new leadership candidates, some pushing a new right agenda. Labour still leads, but for how long? Labour entered Downing Street with a broad mandate and a cautious hand. But 1 year later, that caution is beginning to look like weakness. The media is no longer patient. The public is no longer convinced. And the opposition. 12 months ago, Keir Starmer stood on the steps of Downing Street and declared a new chapter for Britain. A chapter of hope. Of competence. Of rebuilding. But after 1 full year under Labour's leadership, we are left with a far more complicated story, one that defies headlines and soundbites. To be fair, some things have changed. The markets are calmer. Government is less chaotic. Ministerial scandals have disappeared from the front pages. the tone of British politics has become less toxic. And yet, for millions of people, life hasn't improved. Wages remain stuck. Rent keeps rising. The NHS is still on its knees. Small boats continue to cross the channel. Taxes feel heavier, but public services don't feel stronger. This is not the transformation Labour promised. It's not a collapse, but it's far from a recovery. Because change is hard. Because the problems Labour inherited are deep. Because the space for radical policy is shrinking in a world of economic limits and political fear. But also, because Labour chose caution over boldness. Because they feared failure more than they chased success. And because they still don't seem sure who they really want to be, a party of radical reform, or just better managers of the status quo. The real question now isn't just about Labour, it's about us. The voters. The citizens. The nation. Do we want quiet competence? Do we want bold transformation? Or are we so exhausted that we've lost faith in change altogether? If Labour's first year tells us anything, it's this. Politics alone cannot fix Britain. But bad politics can make things worse, slowly, quietly, until apathy turns to anger. Labour's first year was not a disaster. But it was not a triumph. It was survival. A holding pattern. A moment suspended between promise and paralysis. And as Reform UK surges, the Tories regroup, and the public grows colder, one thing becomes clear. The clock is ticking. The goodwill is fading. The next 12 months may determine not just Labour's future, but Britain's. What do you think? Has Labour earned your trust? Or is Britain still waiting for the change it was promised? Let us know in the comments, we read every one. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, it helps us bring you more real, researched, and relevant content. Until next time, stay informed. Stay critical. And never stop asking. Who is really building Britain's future, and who's just building careers?